Hello, everyone. So I found an article earlier today because it was posted to my news flip on my phone. But before we get into the article, I want to say a couple things because of the various videos I have watched today. There is a wonderful irony that we live in today. The acts of Louis C.K., jokes like Count Dankula, or even Donald Trump himself, they all share a bond of mutual hatred from mainstream journalists, or the companies they represent, or both. These individuals were crucified before the court of public opinion and deemed guilty for various transgressions they may or may not have committed. The mob was whipped up by such journalistic individuals using words like racist, anti-Semitic, hateful, and more. So the mob does what a mob does, and it descends upon the individual who has been accused of being a witch. Now in this case, I brought up there are varying degrees of guilt. Count Dankula, accused of being anti-Semitic for teaching his pug to do a trick for the direct purpose of pissing off his girlfriend by turning the pug into the worst thing imaginable, a Nazi. He was convicted of a thought crime by the public and convicted of a BS charge in actual court. Louis C.K. was accused of masturbating in front of female co-workers, as well as his stand-up comedy sketches containing racy and non-PC jokes. To the latter of those two, it is very similar to Count Dankula. They were jokes. However, the masturbating thing, okay, but he did first ask to obtain consent, so you get a half point on that one. Then there's Donald Trump, who, quite frankly, I haven't kept score since the election in 2016, but he is the vile heathen the left wing wants to burn at the stake the most, for good or for evil. Doesn't matter, it's Trump. But when one looks at the way these mobs are whipped up against folks like this, and countless others, there is a very specific way that they happen. Notoriety yields the potential for success. The mainstream media, or their cultists, latch onto the trend and find a flaw, whether in the personal history of the individual or the content they provide to the public. And then, as that story blows up and their trusted mouthpieces espouse the feelings the masses should feel, the mob is formed. Common opinions link strangers together, and then they go to Twitter, Facebook, wherever, to give their 2 cents. Now, why am I going through all this? It is all old news. Well, this is why. The fetid right-wing origins of Learn to Code, how an online swarm has developed a sophisticated mechanism to harass and gaslight journalists, and to get mainstream media outlets to join in. Yes, that is right, ladies and gentlemen, there's another article on this subject, but this one's a hot take. So let's dive in, shall we? Last Thursday, I received the news that the HuffPost opinion section, where I had been opinioning on a weekly basis for a few months, had been axed in its entirety. The same opinion column had had a home at the Village Voice for some 21 weeks before that entire publication shuttered as well. This business sucks, I tweeted, chagrined at the simple fact that I kept losing my column because of the cruel ongoing shrinkage of independent journalism in the United States. Dozens of jobs were slashed at HuffPost that day, following a round of layoffs at Gannett Media. Further jobs were about to be disappeared at BuzzFeed. It was a grim day for the media, and I just wanted to channel my tiny part of the prevailing gloom. You ever heard of a diary? This is a point I made in a recent video, but Twitter is not your personal blog. It is how you communicate with your followers and others not blocked who can find you. Be prepared for that when you want to channel disappointment and reject others' opinions. Then the responses started rolling in. Some sympathy from fellow journalists and readers, then an irritating gush of near-identical responses. Learn to code. Maybe learn to code. Better learn to code then. Learn to code, you useless bitch. Alongside these tweets were others. Stop writing fake news and crap. MAGA. Your opinions suck and no one wants to read them. Lamau journalists are evil, wicked cretins. I wish you were all jail, sick, and afraid. Now, some of those, I mean, they were in quotes, so I assume they're real, but I have to doubt some of them. Just, maybe. The internet is a terrible place, but whatever. A little harsh for me. The point is the whole learn to code thing, okay? On its own, telling a laid-off journalist to learn to code is a profoundly annoying bit of advice, a nugget of condescension and antipathy. It's also a line many of us may have already heard from relatives who, pretending to be well-meaning and who question an idealistic, unstable, and that word, career choice, but it was clear from the outset that this advice was larded through with real hostility. And the timing and the ubiquity of the same phrase made me immediately suspect a brigade attack. My suspicions were confirmed when conservative figures like Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump Jr. joined the pile-on, revealing the ways in which right-wing hordes have harnessed social media to discredit and harass their opponents. Now, I'm not sure of how much discrediting can be found here, considering many of the victims are already unemployed. So I'm pretty sure its credit is where credit is due, in my opinion. And also the irony that that thing was actually started by you guys, remember? The journalists. Your next comments really spit in the face of reality when you think about it. What's a brigade attack, you might ask? It's a rather dramatic name for coordinated harassment, usually migrating from one social media site to another, often hatched in the internet's right-wing cesspools. These campaigns unleash a mass of harassment on unsuspecting targets. 4chan's Pole Board, a gathering place for people who want to say the N-word freely, vilify feminists, and opine on nefarious Jewish influence, has an oversized role in organizing brigade attacks, in part due to the fact that all its users are anonymous. I personally like the new term, brigade attack. Almost sounds like a video game reference, but that's probably just a coincidence, right? While it's difficult to trace the origins of brigading like most of internet history, its beginnings are ephemeral. The term and its tactics came to a new prominence during the loosely organized and militantly misogynistic harassment campaign known now as Gamergate, which unfolded over the course of 2014 and 2015. Oh, see, this is where I think you're full of shit. I think brigading has always been around, said Carolyn Sinders, a design and research fellow with the digital program at Harvard's Kennedy School, who received enormous volumes of harassment during Gamergate. I think of it like campaigning. It's coordinated, it's planned, it's designed. Brigading is like targeting a victim and planning a course of attack, from overwhelming their mentions, flooding a hashtag, to SEO bombing. Man, you guys are really self-centered, aren't you? I mean, flooding a hashtag, overwhelming your mentions. Have you ever heard of a fucking block button? I know, it's a lot of people, but when you piss off a large majority of people because you personally told them all that they don't exist, what did you think was going to happen? That you insulted everyone's existence? Isn't that kind of the whole erasure thing that you guys talk about? While wrapped in a thin guise of concern about ethics in games journalism, this was the rationale for the entire Gamergate harassment campaign. An ugly welter of death threats, stalking, swatting, and precision targeting of women, particularly women of color, for abuse. But that rationale was taken seriously by both media outlets, which wrote up the controversy as if it were a genuine conflict between two sides of equal legitimacy, and by advertisers, which pulled support for media organizations targeted by Operation Disrespectful Nod, a Gamergate brigading campaign. You know, with a name like Operation Disrespectful Nod, doesn't sound like a harassment campaign, sounds like a nod to you as being an asshole. Now, for those of you unaware, Gamergate has a long history, which I will not get into on this video, but it is crucial to know that the entire point of it was in fact ethics in gaming journalism. It was not an attack on women, not directly. It just so happened that a lot of journalistic ethics standards were broken by female game journalists. The basis was that only white male gamers are actually good at games, so everyone else needs to go through some ethics screening, Shireen Mitchell explained. That women sleep around and minorities are only given jobs because of their skin, not because they are qualified. So that became the ruse. The narratives are used as cover. Gamergate used sympathetic journalists to add a patina of legitimacy to its cover narrative, a tactic that has been repeated with the ongoing harassment campaign called Learn to Code. The article goes on for a little bit longer, but the point I want to make in all of this is that look where we came from. This article is complaining about the internet basically forming a witch hunt against journalists as a collective, as a mob. Keep in mind the majority of people let go from these opinion writer positions were gender writers. This person, Talia Levin, likens the response from the individuals on the internet as a coordinated attack instead of individuals joining on a bandwagon because you all seem to hate it so much. Notice that the 4chan campaigns, if you will, are called Operation something. Notice it's not Operation Learn to Code. Learn to Code is just the meme. And honestly, if it didn't bother you guys, we wouldn't tell you to learn to code, and that's the sad part. By writing these articles, you can expect more of people like myself to make videos and more people to contribute and continue the Learn to Code meme, especially because you involved Gamergate, for God's sake. How detached are you from the rest of the world, or have you simply been consumed by unethical journalism that you clearly engage in? But that's all I have for you guys today. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. I hope you all have a good one, and I'll see you all soon.